This is the Rob Talks podcast, the podcast that is opening up the conversation around mental health, how you can look after your well-being, and how you can achieve fulfillment and happiness in your life. Please give us a follow, and I hope you enjoy. You are listening to the Rob Talks podcast, and this is episode 3, and we are in for an absolute banger. I just also wanted to say at the beginning, thank you so much for the feedback that I've been getting with the past 2 podcast episodes, and it's honestly been so much fun. I don't know what it is about recording a podcast, but there's something about it of where it's very therapeutic. It's really nice to just chat for something, or 3 topics in this case for half an hour, and really just get my thoughts on these topics out there to you guys and see what you think. Because at the end of the day, this is just, well, the majority of it is my opinion with some facts here and there, but it's always interesting to hear what you guys think and to feel like in a weird way that I'm having a conversation with whoever is listening or watching right now. But if you've been loving the episode so far, then please make sure to like, subscribe, follow on Spotify, and get ready because I'm going to try and post these consistently every single week just for you guys, and also just because I'm loving it. This is so much fun. And so today's podcast is going to be a really interesting one. It's touching on a few subjects that I've kind of gone through the past week via things I've seen on LinkedIn and thoughts that I've actually been having myself. And last week was an incredibly important week in terms of that Sunday, the 10th of October, was World Mental Health Day. And I'm sure that the majority of you saw that I posted on my socials a video that was trying to give some form of advice, hopefully, and some value that could help you look after your mental health. And so I'm going to try and make sure that I'm going to speak about mental health even more within these podcast episodes going forward, and also see if I can create some specific content videos on different topics around mental health and mental well-being. So if there's any topics that you would like me to speak about, then please let me know in the comments below, or send me a DM on Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever it is, and let me know what you would like to hear about. But anyways, let's get started on the Rob Talks podcast, episode 3. And the first thing that I'm wanting to speak about today is an interesting topic that I came across this week. And it is, I'm going to call it this, and notice my wording, it is life-work balance. Now, I'm sure there are many people kind of going, Rob, you've got that the wrong way around. But no, I'm calling it life-work balance because I personally believe that people have work-life balance the wrong way round. It was just really interesting. Last week I was in a meeting and I was just listening to what everyone was saying, and it was very much the first 5 minutes of the meeting, and so everyone's catching up and seeing how people are. And it was so funny because someone made a comment about the fact that it was Wednesday and they were so looking forward to the weekend and kind of getting out of being in their job and just being able to have a free weekend. And initially I didn't think much of it. And then me being me, I started to think quite a lot about it. And I thought, why would you say something like that? And in that moment, I wrote something down in my journal, which I'm looking at the moment, which was to do with that it felt as though they were speaking from a perspective of that they were looking at their life as a work-life balance, in that everything was about their job, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and then the weekend was actually when they're getting to live and getting to do all the fun things that they want to be able to do. And I just found it kind of funny because I'm quite fortunate in terms of that I'm a university student, and so I'm in a part of my career right now where I have a lot more choice. But I've always been the opposite. I always make sure that the work I'm doing is something that I enjoy, is something that I'm passionate about, and I feel as though I really have a purpose behind it. And the times of when you're doing work that you don't, I honestly, they're the kinds of pieces of work that you get done, you get the grade, and you move on. But the stuff of where it's really going to help me to develop as a person, and really it's something that I'm passionate about, I give 110%. And you know why that is? It's because I work to a life-work balance. And hear me out on this. Some people may be getting confused and thinking, Rob, you're confusing work with life and you're not really understanding what the balance is. My perspective on it is that truly, for you to have a great life, you have to be enjoying what you are doing. You have to be passionate about what you are doing. And so, in all honesty, I look at the work that I do that I am passionate about as not work. And that's because it doesn't feel like work. I ran a social enterprise last year that was called PrepMate, and it was all about helping people with upper limb differences and dexterity related impairments to have greater confidence and be empowered within the kitchen to be able to cook and prepare food, all through a chopping board that I designed. And it was honestly one of those things where I sat back at the end of it reflecting upon the journey that I'd had with that social enterprise and the journey I'd had with the project and the people involved in the project. And I realised even if someone had offered to pay me, I probably would have said no. And I've said this to friends before within startups of where if I'm really passionate about something, I don't want someone to pay me because then it gives me an excuse to work to just what those monetary hours are. If it's 9 to 5, then I'll work 9 to 5 and not really do much else. But when I have something that I'm truly passionate about, to the point of that I can sit there and go, you don't have to pay me to do this. Like, I love this. That's where I feel like I'm striking the life-work balance correctly. Because what is deemed as work, what is deemed as your career, has all of a sudden become life. Because it's my passion, it's what I love to do, and it's something that, as I've said, it doesn't feel like work. And it's amazing, and I think ultimately what people do a lot of the time, of course, you look at the traditional careers, and especially when you're in school, you're kind of pushed to go either towards your grades or to where the money is. And a lot of the time, we're not really allowed to be in this space of where we can decide what we want to actually do. A lot of the time, we're forced into a space of where it's what's the easiest thing that I can do to survive, to get money, to get food on the table and live life like that. Or to do something that people will respect within society, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be someone of a high status, prime minister, whatever it is, although I don't think many people, let's not get into that. And so it's interesting because I think not enough people are pursuing what their passions are. And I've had a few people that kind of conflict against me saying that, in terms of that go, oh, but Robert, I'm passionate about cricket or something like that. I'm not going to work and do that for the rest of my life because I can't make enough money and yada yada. And I think that's where the balance comes in as well, because you have to find what's a passion that you can monetize and you can go to work and it not feel like work, but at the same time you can still survive, you can have a comfortable life and just really enjoy what you're doing and enjoy your life as a whole. I believe when you find that holy grail of something that you're passionate about, that is something that you can do as a career, it's amazing. And I genuinely think that's what life-work balance is. Because when you find your purpose, when you find your passion, what you're passionate about and you can do as a career, then you start to look at life differently, and you start to look at kind of how you spend your time differently, and you start to prioritize correctly, I feel, in a way. It depends. Some people go down a bit of a spiral sometimes of focusing a bit too much on that one passion and not realizing you've got friends, you've got family and stuff like that. You can do other things. But I believe that people who are happy in their work know how to control it and really have the best lives. And so if you are someone listening out there right now And I'm going to say this right here, right now. It doesn't matter what age you are, because so many people worry about the fact of, oh, what if I'm 60 and I want to change my career now? That's perfectly fine. You can change your career when you're 80, 90. I don't care. Do whatever's going to make you happy. But please pursue a career that you are passionate about, and that you know if you go to work every single day that you are going to ultimately enjoy it and enjoy the outcome of it. It isn't purely for the rat race of life to just get your money, to get your pay packet and go home. Because there is so much more to life than that. There's so much more to your career than that. And I believe that once you have that part of the life-work balance sorted, everything else comes into it. Because then you start to realize how you can prioritize your family, how you can prioritize your own health, how you can prioritize spending time with your friends, how you can prioritize your life. At the end of the day, you're the one living it. So you need to prioritize your life for you and what you find fun and what you're passionate about and what life means to you. I'd be really interested to see what people think about this topic, but that is honestly what I think. It is very much around life-work balance and not work-life balance. I hope people find that topic interesting, because I found it incredibly interesting. And it kind of also led me on to something that I thought about, which was avoiding burnout. And this is kind of just a subtopic within this main topic. And burnout can be really hard. Burnout can be something that can really easily happen sometimes, and I've had it before when I've been kind of in my passion or in my passionate state of focus and just really doing that and nothing else. I'm sure my flatmates, if they're listening from second year, remember how I was in up to kind of Christmas of second year, in that my life was sitting at my desk and doing work and work and work. It was nothing else. And there were some weeks that I absolutely loved it because that's what I was passionate about. And then you got to some weeks and you realized, this is not what it's cracked up to be. So definitely getting that life-work balance with your career, but also making sure that you get it with everything else in life, to look after your mental health, your well-being, your relationships, kind of everything that intertwines into making your life amazing. And so now I'm going to lead on to the second topic that I want to speak about on this podcast, which is around being nice. Which sounds very simple, doesn't it? And this is probably the moment where lots of people are going to switch off, and I'll see on the YouTube graph of that it shows everyone's clicked off now and be like, oh dear, I lost everybody. But for the people that are still here, being nice to each other is more important than you realize. Simon Sinek, in fact, speaks about this quite a lot because of just how simple of an action it is to be nice to each other, that then works into a reaction that then creates this like domino effect of us all being nice to each other. I'll explain it with the story that he used. So he used a story of that he was walking down this path of wherever he was, and the person in front of him dropped all of their papers. And he helped pick up all the papers and gave them back to the person, and the person said thank you, and he just kept walking on. And then oddly, as Simon was walking down the path, someone ran across the road to him and said, I saw you do that to that person. That was really nice. Simon kind of just goes, thank you. And instantly you just know that the person that has come over to speak to Simon is now going to go away and do something nice. And that's the whole point of it. Sometimes we overlook manners. We overlook this whole idea of even holding a door open for somebody, helping somebody with their shopping, whatever it is. We overlook it, especially in today's society. And annoyingly, being nice a lot of the time is seen as something that is weak. That is something that we shouldn't really do, and that we should be kind of selfish in a way, because being selfish is the right thing, right? And that you must prioritize yourself, and it's kind of like every man for himself kind of expression, when being nice to each other is ultimately what creates this domino effect. The way that I look at it is that by you being nice, by you doing one little action, whatever it is, you then inspire somebody else to be nice that day, that hour, that minute, whatever it is. And people a lot of the time conflict it with that being nice means that you have to run a charity, or that being nice means that you have to be nice every 5 seconds of your life, and that you have to hold open a door, you then have to put your jacket down over the puddle that someone's about to walk over, you have to pick up the person because they're about to cross the road, I don't know, whatever it is. That was a very bad example. But being nice to each other is just something that should be a necessity, and it doesn't have to be something that you're doing every 5 seconds, but it needs to be something that is driven more into the society that we live in today, because it feels as though it's fleeting. And especially when we've been through something like the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to be nice to each other. Because if we're not nice to each other, then how do you expect us to survive something like that? It's near impossible without camaraderie, without acts of kindness. There's a great bit in the film. If you've never watched it, you must watch this film. It's a brilliant film called Evan Almighty. And right at the end, there's a moment of where Evan is stood with God in a crop field. And just to clarify, God is Morgan Freeman, amazing actor. And there's a part of where Morgan Freeman writes into the kind of soil that's on the ground the word ark, which if anyone has watched the film, you'll know why. But what it stands for is one act of random kindness at a time. And I genuinely remind myself of that clip from the movie so much. Just to remember that if I just do a kind act, or I'm nice to someone, that one little thing could change their day. You could honestly help someone who's having a really bad day, who's really sad, or even maybe, dare we say, depressed or something like that. Your one action could really light up their day. It could then inspire them to go and help someone else. And then that inspires the next person, and the next, and the next, and the next. And that's why we have to be kind to each other. I've written a note that basically says that being kind is what's going to save the planet. When we think about what we need to do to save the planet, so much of it is kind of selfless acts in a way, in that we need to change our behaviours. We need to be kinder, being kinder to the planet, being kinder to other people, to reduce inequality, to reduce racism, prejudice, and so many things that kind of intertwine in making this world a better place. And so much of it comes down to, annoyingly, two things of really, it's one is money, but we're not going to delve into that today. But the other one is what we do. And this is something that, in fact, I'm exploring in my internship at the moment, because just as an interesting insight for any people interested in design or just what consumers buy, there's an insight that they have at Unilever that I suspect is quite well known as well, in the fact that people don't buy based on sustainability. And it is only a percentage of consumers that will buy purely because a product is sustainable. A lot of the time we need a lot more selfish reason to buy the product, because it's going to give us a nice user experience, because it's aesthetically pleasing. In the case of deodorants, because it smells nice, because it works, it stops me from sweating. And so ultimately we have to learn about how, if we are kinder to each other, we'll change that graph. We'll change it to that more people are having the behaviour of being nicer to one another. And it will just be this beautiful domino effect that makes ultimately our society a nicer place to be a part of. And so that's why I'm a true believer in that being nice to someone, no matter how small it is, as long as you do it every single day, just one little act can be world changing, ultimately. And my last little point on this topic is also the fact of that it makes you feel happier. A lot of people think that sometimes with being nice that it has to be this transactional thing of that we have to get something back. When in fact the whole point of being nice is that it's one-sided. You're doing it out of, as you were kind of told in school, the kindness of your heart. You're doing it because you want to help someone else. And in doing so, you know what happens? You get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. And you know what that is? That's you getting happier. You helping other people makes you feel happier. It helps your happiness whilst also helping someone else to be happy. That's why I love this topic of around people being nice to each other. And I implore you, if you are listening to this or watching this, think about what you can do today as that one act of random kindness, and think about how that can pan out for the rest of your life. Be kind to people. Be nice to people. Because it's not something that is weak. It's in fact something that is empowering and just beautiful. Honestly, honestly, beautiful. And the last topic that I wanted to touch upon in this podcast is quite an important topic and has really been prevalent for me within the last week. And it's all around self-awareness. And I'll give you context of why it's been important for me. So in the past week, I've been quite busy at work, and it got to a point of where some of the tasks that I was being asked to do made me feel quite stressed because they were outside what I can do at the moment. I know ultimately in my head that the more I develop as a designer, that I will get to the stage that I can do those things. But the things that were being asked of me and in the time frame just were not realistic. And so I was quite stressed. And overall, I just wasn't having a great week. And I didn't truly understand why. Because all of the stress of the things that were happening within work came on one day, and that was the Friday. But I'd also not been feeling great for the other half of the week. And I didn't understand why. And this is where self-awareness comes in and why it's such an important skill. Because I got to the weekend and kind of sat down with myself in a way and had a form of self-talk. Now, we all have self-talk. We all have a little voice that's inside our head that kind of makes us think things, makes us feel things, makes us have certain opinions. And sometimes we can listen to our self-talk voice, and sometimes it's not good to listen to our self-talk voice. But this time I decided to listen around what I was thinking, around how the week had been. And what I did was I kind of took a step back, and I say this a lot to people, that sometimes you just have to take a step back, and it's just really hard to communicate apart from just saying you have to take a step back sometimes when you're thinking about stuff so that you don't overthink about something. And so I took a step back, reviewed my week, and thought, what is making me feel crap at the moment? And it came down to what was happening in work and being stressed about that. It actually came down to the fact that I hadn't exercised all week. And I only realized it in that moment. I'm someone that's really active. And so to go a whole week not having exercised, it felt wrong. And honestly impacted me a little bit with my mental well-being. And then I realized that I hadn't done any mindfulness. I opened up my journal and I realized that I'd barely written any notes, as I normally do every single evening, write some form of thoughts that I'm having or how I'm feeling or what I'm grateful for. And it was by having that self-awareness I realized what was going on, and that I was just struggling a little bit. And I was only struggling because, number one, with not addressing what was happening at work. And so that's now something this week I'm addressing and trying to make more manageable. And as you should expect with any great company, I'm being helped and work is getting easier and work is getting better. And I'm now going to achieve that goal that they set me, thanks to my colleagues and thanks to everyone in my workspace. So I doubt they're listening, but big shout out to them. And with exercise, I'm now trying to go to the gym every single day, because I know that if I do that, it just mentally makes me feel better, and it allows me to kind of have a weird form of downtime, to just have a time of being me and doing exercise. And then from now on, I'm trying to include more periods of time within my week to allow for reading, to allow for more relaxing things, which will include more times to just lie in bed with a pen and my journal and just write down anything that I'm thinking about. And that's all come from the skill of self-awareness. And sometimes we just have to be brutally honest with ourselves. I feel as though I'm someone that I can be brutally honest. I try not to be too honest sometimes, because it can in fact hurt people. But I try and be brutally honest, especially with myself. And so self-awareness is something that I'm forever trying to develop and forever trying to consider within my life, because then it allows me to understand where I am today, why maybe I feel the way I do today because of what's happened in the past week. But it also helps you in terms of the scheme of life, because there are so many moments of where we look back on our lives, and maybe some people listening to this feel like this now, and you may feel like a failure, or you may feel like that you've screwed up. You may feel like that you're not achieving anything. You're at age 20, for example, as I am, and you feel as though you're doing nothing. You've not developed, you're not achieving anything. And self-awareness is the key skill that is needed in that moment. Because with self-awareness, you can realize, and I do this through an exercise, of where I just write down on a piece of paper about where I am at now in terms of my strengths and my weaknesses. And this is more career specific, but I write down where I am at now with my strengths and my weaknesses. And then I can leave that piece of paper somewhere that I can see it every single day, and then pick it up maybe in a couple months' time, maybe even in a year's time, and you see where you are. It's actually quite easy as well, I've now realised, I didn't realise before, for me as a designer to see how far I've come, because all I have to do is look at my drawings from GCSE, or I have to look at my A-level project, or even my first year project, and even now my second year projects, and you just realise how far you've come. So if anyone is sat there, or whatever you're doing, listening to this podcast, and you're feeling like you haven't developed in the last few years, think about the last time that you were doing the skills that you're having to do now. Where were you? I bet you were at 0, or you were a beginner, or an amateur at least. Or even if you were a professional, now look where you are with them. See how much you have progressed, how much you have developed, how much you have started to even, potentially in some people's cases, mastered your career or the skill that you've been trying to master. Because as humans, we don't do it enough. We concentrate too much on the negative, and sometimes we're wrapped up too much in the moment, in the day. Like I always say to people, seize the day, but as a part of seizing the day, you need to seize the moments that happen within the day and not just become wrapped up in the day. Because if the day is really negative, you've got to be able to take a step back. Otherwise you'll be really upset about how the day's been. And so in having self-awareness around yourself, around your life, and around everything that is happening, you can ultimately help yourself to feel better, especially with your mental health and your mental well-being. And it all just comes down to being honest with ourselves. If you truly want to be your authentic self, and you truly want to be who you really are, then you have to be honest with yourself sometimes. Sometimes you have to take a step back and be really self-aware about where am I now, where have I been, and where do I want to go in the future? Who do I want to be? And understanding that self-awareness can also apply to that if you're feeling not so great at the moment, why is that? Because in the majority of cases, there will always be a reason why. And so if you take the step back and the step outside of the box, I like to call it when you're thinking about perspective, the step outside of the box or out of the bubble of your life to then go, that's why I feel like this. That's being self-aware. And that is honestly why self-awareness is just such a key skill, and a skill I think everyone should really, really try and develop, because it will ultimately help you in the long run, and it'll help you with your mental well-being. I think that's a fantastic point to finish upon, if I do say so myself, and hopefully you guys have gained some real value from this episode. I also apologise if you've heard anything in the background. It's hard being a student. Hopefully one day when we get to like episode 200, we'll have a proper studio and everything, and hopefully a nicer camera than Zoom and a nicer microphone and everything. But I hope you guys have really enjoyed this podcast. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and even gained some thoughts myself that I'm going to write down in my journal this evening, as I said I would do. And so thank you so much for listening. I hope everyone who is listening to this has a fantastic week, and please subscribe, give me a follow on Spotify, like the video, like the podcast, and save it, download it even if you wish, if you want to listen to it in the car, listen to it on a bus ride, whatever it may be. And please let me know what you think as well. I'm forever trying to improve, and I know this is only episode 3, but the only way is up. But anyway, guys, until next time, have a great week, have a great weekend, and I will speak with you next Monday. You have just been listening to the Rob Talks podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and please make sure to subscribe and give me a follow on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, or even LinkedIn. And I will speak with you soon. Stay safe and have a great week.